Welcome to CS 1401, video 9.1. This video is about iteration and specifically about while. Sometimes we'll want to do something more than once. In particular, we may want to do something as long as some condition is true. For example, if we want to buy 3 pounds of potatoes, we might put a bowl on a scale and add potatoes to the bowl until the weight is equal to or over 3 pounds. Or we might want to shoot basketballs until we make 4 baskets in a row. Or I want perhaps to eat potato chips and sip water until the bag of potato chips is empty. So there are lots of reasons to want to do things while a condition is true. In my example about the potatoes, the condition would be that the weight of the potatoes in the bowl is less than 3 pounds. In other words, as long as the weight of the potatoes in the bowl is less than 3 pounds, I keep adding a potato, and once the weight of the potatoes in the bowl is equal to or greater than 3 pounds, I stop adding potatoes. For the basketball practice, the condition would be that the number of baskets made in a row is less than 4. In other words, as long as I don't hit 4 baskets in a row, I keep shooting, but once I do hit 4 baskets in a row, I can stop. For the potato chips, the condition would be that the number of chips left in the bag is greater than 0. That means that as long as there is still at least 1 chip left in the bag, I'll eat a chip and take a sip of water. The idea of while is to use a logical expression like this to control iteration. The body of the while loop executes as long as the logical expression is true. In Java, the logical expression can be represented by a Boolean or a Boolean variable. And in a while loop, because the termination check is made before we do the statements in the body, if the logical expression is false at the start, we never execute the statements in the body. In general, then, the form of a while loop is while some condition is true, do some things. So, for example, while the weight is less than 3 pounds, add a potato. While the number of baskets in a row is less than 4, shoot the basketball. And while the number of potato chips left is greater than 0, eat another chip and take a sip of water. In the case of the potato chips, because I'm doing more than one thing, I've put the things to do inside a set of curly brackets. The idea there is that now with the curly brackets, I've explicitly said what's in the body of the loop. In the other examples, there was just one thing to do, so I didn't need curly brackets. It was clear that the one thing to do was that one line. Let's turn to an example in computing, which might be to count down from a given number. Here's an algorithm to do that, which I call countdown. It takes one argument, which is the number to count down from. Here's my loop. It's a while loop that says while the number is greater than 0, and now here comes the body of the loop inside curly brackets, print the number, and then subtract 1 from the number and put it in the number. In other words, decrement the number by 1. As long as the number is greater than 0, I keep doing the body of the loop. I'll print the number and decrement the number again. Eventually, the number will be decremented so that it reaches 0. And when that's done, the loop will terminate and I'll print done. Another example might be to prompt for and check for a correct password until the person gets it right. Now, this is not a good plan for the real world, though. A secure approach would limit the number of tries. So we'll understand that we're doing this example for the purposes of the class, and if we were doing it in real life, we do it a different way. Basically, perhaps limiting the number of tries to 3. Here's my educational algorithm, check password. The first thing I'll do is set a variable to the value of the password I want the user to enter, the correct password. In this case, it's go1401 with an exclamation point. Next, I'll set the condition we're checking, that is, whether the password is correct, to false. This lets me enter the loop. And here's my while loop. So the first line is the condition. It says while not password correct. So as long as the user has not entered a correct password, we'll continue to execute the loop. Because password correct is initially false, the condition evaluates to not false, which is true. So it'll execute at least once. What's in the body of the loop? Well, it will print enter password and then read the password entered, and then check to see whether the password entered is the same as the password we are checking for. If that's the case, we'll set password correct to be true. Now, if the password entered is not the same as the password we're looking for, then password correct will remain false, and the loop will continue to execute. Eventually, we hope, the user will enter the correct password, and password correct will be set to true. And then when we get to the condition in the while loop, it'll say not password correct will be equal to true, not true is equal to false, and so the loop will terminate. And after the loop terminates, we'll print welcome. I've implemented these algorithms in Java, so let's take a look, starting with my algorithm countdown. So here's the class countdown. It's going to take one argument from the command line, an integer which I'll call the number, and that's the number we're going to count down from. And here's my while loop. While the number is greater than 0, I'll execute the body of the loop. What's in the body? Well, first thing I'll do is print out the number, and then I'll decrement the number. You'll remember that a few videos ago, we looked at the unary operator ++, which increments a variable. When I say the number ++, that's the same as assigning to the variable the number, the value of the number +1. Well, minus minus is the unary operator for decrementing. So the number minus minus puts the value of the number -1 back in the variable the number. Well, as long as the number stays positive, then the loop will continue to execute. But once the number hits 0, then the number greater than 0 will be false, and the loop will stop executing, and I will print out a message, done. I'll compile countdown and execute it with, say, the argument 6, and sure enough, it prints out the numbers in decreasing order from 6 to 1. Next, let's take a look at the Java implementation of my algorithm check password. I'm going to be taking input from the terminal rather than from the command line, so I need to import the Java utility scanner. Now I'll start defining my class check password, and the first thing we'll do is create a new instance of scanner called in. I'll set up my password to be checked against, that is the correct password, as a string variable, and the value of that string will be go1401 exclamation point. I'll have another string variable for the password that the user will enter. And the last variable I need is going to be a Boolean, that is, it'll be true or false, called password correct. And I'll set that initially to false so that my loop will execute at least once. Here's the code for the loop. The condition is not password correct. The exclamation point is the logical operator for not in Java. So exclamation point password correct, and I'll remember that password correct is a Boolean variable, will return the opposite value of password correct. I set password correct initially to be false, so if password correct is false, then not password correct will be true, and so the while loop will execute at least once. Let's look next at the body of the loop. I'll print out the prompt enter password, read the password from the terminal, and put it in the variable password entered. Finally, in the loop, I'll check to see whether the password entered equals the password we're looking for. And as in a previous video, I'm using the string class's method equals to check that. So the password dot equals password entered checks to see whether the string stored in the password is equal to the string stored in password entered. If that's true, the value true is assigned to password correct, our Boolean variable, and if it's false, password correct will be false. Well, if the value is false for password correct, then when we evaluate while not password correct again, we'll get not false, which will be true, and we'll run the loop again. At some point, we hope the user will enter the correct password, in which case the password dot equals password entered will be true, and so password correct will be true, and so not password correct will be not true, which is false, and so the condition for the while will be false, and the loop will terminate. And after the loop terminates, I'll print out welcome. Let's see how check password runs in Java. I'll compile it, run it, and enter a password we know not to be correct, infant8, and it says enter password again, showing that it's not the right password. So I'll enter the right password, and sure enough, success. So that's a look at iteration using while, both abstractly at the level of pseudocode and more concretely in terms of implementing while loops in Java. In the next video, I'll look at another iteration construct called for. I'll see you then.